Hello, welcome to this short tutorial on how to replace a motor in the DM series Dust Extractors. So between all different models the same principle applies. Let's dive right into it right now. Okay, so the first thing we need to get is an 11mm spanner, or adjustable wrench will work if you don't have that. Today I'm going to use a impact wrench with an 11mm socket, and the other thing we need is a texter. Okay, so this cover here is purely to cover the inlet ports of the motors. There's no need to remove these nuts here. What we're going to remove is the 4 nuts, as you can see here. So I'll do the first one with this spanner here just for demonstration purposes. Remove the nut and the washer and put them aside. At this point I'll just use the socket driver, it's a lot quicker. Okay, so at this point, if there's only one motor that needs to be replaced, we need to identify which one is not working. So inside here you'll see that there is 2 motors, and here is 2 switches. Not necessarily always is that switch going to turn that motor on, so we need to identify which one's not working so we know which one to replace. So to do that, okay, so I have this machine plugged in at the moment. These 4 screws are undone, so we do need to be careful. Okay, so I'm going to blip the first motor and then have a look inside. Alright, so I can see that this motor here is the one that's running, therefore it must be that one that is giving us trouble. Let's disconnect the machine first from the power. So we have the power disconnected now, just for safety. We're going to remove this here. So at this point, using a texter, just mark one of the connectors here, as you can see, with a texter so you don't lose which one goes to which connector. Right, so we can disconnect that and the other one. That leaves us the lid free. Now we're going to replace this motor here. So the first thing we're going to do is remove this rubber seal here and put that aside. We need that for later. Okay, so we have in here a bunch of wires that go to the motor, and then we have an extra one which is going to the cleaning motor. So we need to loosen this gland off here so that the wire can go up and down inside there. Then we're going to get our socket driver, undo these 4 nuts. Put them aside. Now this particular connector is a locking connector, so you can move it out a little like this to access it, squeeze it and give it a pull. Okay. Alright, that's that done. So these 2 wires, they look identical. It doesn't matter which way they go onto the motor, whether it's that way or that way, just whatever makes it most sense as far as the length of the wire goes. Let's remove this cover. Okay, so we set that aside. Now we have full access to the motor here. We're going to remove this rubber here, put that aside, and then we'll lift the motor off. And underneath you'll see there's a seal and there's also a gauze. So this may pull out, which is fine, just leave it in the bottom there for the minute, as with the rubber. We'll deal with that in a moment. Okay, so we have the new motor, and the next step is to refit it. So firstly, we need to make sure that the seals in the bottom here are in the right position. So we have 2 seals, just to identify between the 2. Leave the gauze there. We have 2 seals, one is deeper than the other. The deeper one sits on the bottom, so we'll put that in first, and you'll find that this gauze actually fits into the rubber seal as well quite nicely. So make sure that's actually sitting in the little position. Place that over the hole, directly over the centre of the hole. That gives us position for the motor. Make sure that gauze is sitting flat in the bottom and inside the seal. Next, grab the motor and place the brush from front to back, so not side to side, front to back, and place it over the rubber. The next step is to put the seal back onto the top of the motor. Just be careful with the electrical connections and place the seal on top of the motor, as you can see there. That's that done. Okay, so from here we need to place our cover back over the top. So here's the cover. We'll pull these wires through here and carefully lower this down over the whole assembly. Being careful with the electrical connections. At this point you can actually just make sure that motor is in the centre, but it should be fine as long as you place it straight over the hole in the first place. Okay, so from here we need to connect the wires onto the motors. So we've only disconnected one motor, we've got two wires, so it doesn't matter which way they go, whatever's most comfortable for the wires themselves. Making sure they're not stretched. So place them over the terminals, as you can see. Now if these are a little loose, you can use a pair of pliers just to firm up the connector and then place it over the connection. Okay, so that's now ready to go. Last thing we need to do as far as wire is concerned, this particular wire here, as mentioned, we loosened this gland. Just pull out the excess that fell down inside, making sure that you take out the slack there and tighten up the gland. Okay, so the next step is to fit these 4 long nuts. These nuts have a thread one end and not the other. So put the thread up, place it over the posts. Wind them down, and using our impact driver, do them firmly, or just for the demonstration I'll use a spanner here. So tighten them up. Doesn't need to be very tight at all. And that's it. Okay, so the next step is to connect the wires up and then we'll put the lid back on. So got the machine disconnected, of course. Okay, so lay the head here. Now we marked a connector before, and so we know which one to reconnect it to. But there is a indicator here in case you didn't mark it. We have active, neutral and earth here, and also on this wire going down to the filter cleaner. So the connection that has the active and neutral and earth goes down to the filter cleaning motor. The other connector will just have 4 black wires, and that connects to the motor. So they are directional, you can't put them in back to front. Make sure you get it right, push it together, make sure it clicks. So the next step is to make sure that when this lid goes back down, these wires do not land up on top of the motors, as it will cause an issue obviously. So get down beside the machine, making sure the wires are down beside the motors safely as you lower, and place the head back onto the machine. So make sure it's on all 4 studs evenly and it's sitting right. Next thing is to grab the 4 washers, place one on each stud of course, and the 4 nuts, wind them on. Okay, and using the 11mm driver again, tighten them up. For demonstration, we'll use a spanner again. So it doesn't need to be very tight at all, just like that. Okay, so now we can test the machine. Walk over and plug the machine in. So firstly we check the filter cleaning mechanism works correctly. Sounds good. Motor 1 and motor 2. So there you have it, how to replace the DM series motors. As you can see, it's a very simple operation. If you have any questions, give us a call, and thank you for watching.